2375, go ahead.
They said the roof was for podcast or something. Is that what we heard?
Yeah, that's affirmative.
Good morning and welcome back to the VIP seat. Today we are covering the Falcon 10X and AOPA drama continues. Sit back, buckle up, and let's take off. All right, Preston. So this isn't like new news, but it is in the flesh. We now have a Falcon 10X that is going to be test flying soon.
Yeah, it has long been rumored. I mean, I think that everybody was kind of wondering if the 10X was ever actually going to make it. You know, it was rumored to be incredible. There were mock-ups, you know, announcement in 2021, 5 years later, and finally we see it in person. There's actually a leak in December. Somebody pointed out to me when I posted about, oh, it's our first in-person look, and they're like, well, technically, somebody saw it on the ramp in green beforehand, sometime in December. I was like, okay, well, the first official look, Dassault rolled out the Falcon 10X.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw the video of the launch. Like, it was actually a pretty cool unveiling, but they had the, I don't know if it was engineers or technicians, someone with little wands, like walking beside the plane. They taught them choreography, but they looked really uncomfortable the whole time. I just thought that was a little funny.
I know. Did you watch, I don't know if you watched the Winter Olympic Games with like the opening ceremonies. It was really artsy and kind of weird. It reminded me of that. I think the PSA here to private jet OEMs is like, we don't need the artsy things, especially like we had the Cirque du Soleil at NBAA, which was kind of awkward. I don't know if we need all of this kind of like weird dancing pomp and circumstance.
No, we're fine with just the airplanes. Like, that's enough for us. Like, and more swag. You know, actually, don't spend the money on the performance. Just like show us the airplane and give us like, I mean, I was at Airbus and they were handing out these like Airbus plushy airplanes, and it was like wildfire, like they were flying off the table before anyone could get near them. It was chaos. So maybe invest in those.
Yeah, Embraer did fuzzy socks that my wife wears like once a week. So, you know, pick really good swag. I will say too, everybody has the same Nike hat. Like I have 5 manufacturers of the same Nike hat. Like try something different. I try and do really good swag, and it's like, cause you know, people want to keep it. Let's not do the same exact dry fit Nike hat, but let's jump into the 10X. Like some of these stats, like it's on par with the G800 in some ways. It beats it in some ways. It really is going to be pretty unique in this class. It's not going to be a complete one-for-one replacement for its contemporaries.
Yeah, it's not the fastest, but it's pretty dang close. I mean, we're talking about, you know, the fastest being 0.94 Mach, and this one is like 0.9 and 0.925 maximum. So pretty dang good. But for the ladies out there, it is 2 inches taller and 8 inches wider.
Yeah, they say that size doesn't matter, but sometimes it does.
Everybody always, this is like just the constant battle with these airplanes. It's like, it's got to be the biggest one. Whoever's buying these, like they just have to have the latest and the greatest and the biggest.
Yep, exactly. And the French came through and they delivered. I think the other thing that's really cool is the interior is unlike any other. Dassault has very unique interiors. Now, do I like them? I think I'm more of like a traditional kind of Gulfstream, you know, Bombardier, Embraer, leather, all that kind of stuff. But Dassault is coming out with some like, it's like allergy resistant fabric and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting what they've kind of done with the interior design. A little futuristic looking for me, but it's unique.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me here too is the cabin altitude pressure at 41,000 feet. I think it's around like 3,000 or something like that is what they're projecting.
Yeah, I mean, that's super low. And it's really important for transcon trips. The thing that I think about the Falcon 10X is they really have designed around the 10-hour trip, right? The 10-hour flight, having the really long legs. Because if you look at some of the other interior design choices that they made with some of the bedroom and, you know, you kind of have like a bedroom office combo, it's really trying to be a little bit more, you know, focused towards the transcon. Now the G700 and 800 and the Global 7500, they have that too. I mean, it's not unique, but you really see some of the little bitty tweaks that make it more focused on those long range trips.
Yeah, and I think too from the press release, they said this is the first airplane with fully composite wings, which I'm interested to see, you know, how that works out. That's also like, I've heard some talk about composite wings being like a negative because if you get a bird strike or something, like that's a lot more expensive to repair. But I don't know if leading edges are planning on composite or if that's literally the entire wing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that composite is maybe it's a risky choice, because if you look at over the lifetime of these aircraft, I mean, there's still Falcon Bs and Falcon Bs, what is it, 20s, right? That are flying, and Falcon 10s, like they're still flying. I guess the question is going to be are you going to have to re-wing the aircraft after 20 years? Like, hopefully not. I'm sure that they've done a lot of testing on this, but that would be my concern, is kind of the durability of the new design composite wing.
Yeah, but from a weight perspective, obviously, that gets them a little more in terms of size and scale.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I want to point out is that they started taking orders in 2021. My guess is that Taylor Swift probably has one on order because she is a Falcon girl. I would imagine Grant Cardone has at least spoken to them, because he wouldn't even have to rebrand his jet. It already comes with the 10X on the fronts.
There you go.
Custom paint job already built in. But they do have backlog. So the thing about Dassault is they don't report model level backlogs, right? So they kind of say, here's our full backlog. So they have a 73, for current production Falcons, there's a 73 jet backlog against 37 deliveries in 2025, which means that like they're at a 2-to-1. And 73 is not that many compared to some of their competitors. I mean, Dassault is going to make exactly as many as they want to make and not a single one more. But they're blaming it on supply chain. Yet you look at the Rafale fighter, and it has not had supply chain issues. It has beat expectations or met it over the last couple of years. And like the order book of Falcons is 4.5 to 5 billion euros, and the Rafale fighter is 46 billion euros. So like their business jet business is just really, really small.
Yeah, and that's just feel like the case with so many different companies. I'm the helicopter girl here, but we've seen the same thing happen to Sikorsky. Like everything is being put into defense. Like that's really their focus, and commercial is just not getting the attention that it used to. And so you do have to wonder, like, okay, I like you said, they were supposed to deliver 37 in 2025, but they only delivered 31. Missing that, and they missed their delivery guidance for the third year in a row this year. So you have to go, you tell me this is supply chain from COVID, but at the end of the day, you're still able to deliver all those fighter jets. So maybe it's just a matter of priorities. But it makes you wonder as a customer, like, okay, should I go with someone who cares more about the defense side of the business or someone that doesn't have a defense side at all?
Right. I mean, the C check on the Falcon 7X is taking 6 months right now. I mean, they definitely have supply chain issues, obviously. Yeah. I think that becomes kind of lifetime of ownership, is how much support network do you have? How much is this going to cost me? How much downtime do I have? Because we all know that a down airplane costs a lot of money. And if you can't use it, it still costs the same amount of money. I mean, you still have to pay your hangar. Like you have to pay your hangar rent while you're in maintenance. Like people, I think sometimes people think like, oh yeah, I don't have to pay hangar when my airplane's not there. No, you have the space reserves. So yeah, I think like the missing delivery targets is the key thread here. Is that if you think about prioritization of businesses, it doesn't seem as though Dassault is necessarily prioritizing the business jet. We talked about this a couple months ago, but I have heard that basically everybody's cross-trained across both aircraft and aircraft types. So you have military and you have commercial. Whereas like at Textron, it's like two totally separate companies. I mean, you have different CEOs, you have different everything. Whereas at Dassault, it's very tightly integrated. So if you want to pick up these people from the Falcon line and put them over on the fighter line, no problem. Everybody's cross-trained, super easy. And so I guess, prioritizing different business lines and business units. I know Israel placed a huge order for the Rafale fighter jets. A lot of other countries have, kind of moving away from the Lockheed and the U.S. dependence. But the Falcon is still a great airplane. I think the 10X is still, it's going to have a niche, but I think that Falcon is going to continue to be kind of a niche airplane. There's no large operators that operate Falcon aircraft. Like there's no, you don't see them at FlexJet, you don't see them at NetJets. You see them a little bit at EJM in kind of the management side, but not in the big fleet. And I don't think that they care.
Yeah, no, this is, a piece of their business model, but it's certainly not the biggest. But there's a lot of, especially European customers that really like the Dassault, really like the lineage of a fighter jet, business jet thing. But, even in this case, it's not the fastest. So I don't know. But if I could afford one, I'd buy one for sure.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think too, one comment that I've heard from a lot of people is that the front of the 10X does not look like a Falcon. So you think about the 7X, 6X, 8X, the, kind of aggressive looking front of the aircraft that, looks kind of mean and, a little bit pointy. Somebody said it basically looks like the cross of a Praetor and a CRJ 200, and that about got me, because it kind of does. The front droops over a little bit. It just really, the 10X is a totally new iteration. You wouldn't be able to say, oh, Falcon, like that is definitely a Falcon. It looks like the 900 kind of, or a cousin. 2 engines instead of 3. So there's a lot of deviations from the typical design. But I think that's something definitely a design choice. It's beautiful, but I would not say that if you put it up next to the rest of the Falcon lineup that you could kind of pick it out of a crowd. It looks like a cousin.
Thank you so much to AB Jets for sponsoring the show. One thing that I am amazed by, because I'm a technical nerd, is always like what's going on in the back of the shop. It's not necessarily, okay, it's a pretty plane, everything, it's brand new, but how does the capability of the operator come into play? And AB Jets has been around a long time. They've operated a large fleet of Lear 60s, and they've been, taking those 60s and keeping them in service longer and longer, doing the refurbs on the interiors. They have the maintenance team that actually backs up the planes. So that's so critical. They got scale, they have operations. I think that's just an amazing combo.
Yeah, well, it helps when one of your, co-founders or, one of the heads of the company is an AMP mechanic himself. Yes. So it's like, yeah, you're obviously going to have really high maintenance standards. And when both of the guys who lead your company are pilots, it's going to be pilot forward. It also means that you're going to have dispatch reliability. They spec'd a box that has 2 spare wheels and a bunch of spare parts to keep with them in the aircraft while they're on the road. And so if you have an issue, they can swap the wheel out and go, whereas other operators have to call the van and then it comes out, and then hopefully there's one kind of close by and maybe you're on the ground for 8 hours. Like, that's not this. This is dispatch reliability, and I think that's one of the big differences. So thanks so much to AB Jets for sponsoring the season of the VIP seat. Thanks so much for having us on this beautiful brand new Challenger 3500.
Well, speaking of things that you subtly pick up on when you're watching airplanes and looking at airplanes, I think it's a good time to switch into Mile High Madness. And mine this week, I'm just going to start playing this, and I want you to tell me what's wrong with this video. All right, we've got a lady who is saying that she's buying a new jet, but let's check it out.
Honestly, this is an investment, and I also bought it for another project that I'm working on. And I'm so excited, y'all. This is something that has been on my bucket list since forever.
There's a few things missing.
Finally here. So you might be thinking, girl, what do you need with a jet? Don't worry about it. I will reveal all the details.
All right, so she goes through this video like she's made this investment in a jet and she's so excited about it. But as you can see, there's no wings on it.
Or engines. I mean, it's just basically like, yeah. And it looks old. I mean, old.
So I think my theory is here, she's probably like going to open a bar with it or something funny, but it's hilarious because she's like, I'm buying my private jet. I'm ready to go.
It's a good point. We need to call KJ McCarter at Aviation Tax Consultants and ask him what bonus depreciation looks like if you don't have wings or engines. Because what is it then? Like, it's not an aircraft, is it? But it has wheels.
You can't put it into service, I don't think.
Right, but if you use it for your... But if you're using it for your business, what if you turn it into a car? Like, it's got to weigh over, 7,000 pounds or whatever the limit is?
I think if it moves, yes. But if it's just like, it's
the
not bonus. If you into a bar, no. If it's just sitting there, I don't think you can qualify for bonus. But amazing.
Try to write off. Or maybe you could take 60% bonus, right? You can't take the full 100%. So you're missing the wings and the engines and probably a lot of the avionics. But you can take 60% of the write-off, right? So,
I'm excited to see what she's doing with it. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, mine is a little bit of maybe things you shouldn't do. Is commenting on public share prices for Wheels Up. So BizAv Memes, they kind of went on a big rant about publicly traded companies. And BizAv Memes, if you're in aviation, you should follow this account. It's usually funny, sometimes a little racy, a little edgy, but kind of talking about all these, all the different publicly traded companies. And someone on here commented about shares outstanding compared to that of companies of similar size. So they start getting into an argument about why it's not a flex at all of this stuff. I'm pretty sure that this person is an employee of Wheels Up. And so Look, not legal advice, but if you work for a publicly traded company, you should usually think twice before you start commenting on things that are public.
That goes for anybody. I mean, in
General
any space,
PSA.
even when we talk about publicly traded companies, like, anything can be misconstrued as financial advice is a big hot no-no. So yeah, be careful.
Yeah, disclose that you are either a shareholder or something like that. So anyways, good things to avoid. We do have one bonus Mile High Madness segment. We got a shout out from Jared Weiss. Jared Weiss works at EJM. So I'm going to share this post. Jared said, if you're looking for a great business aviation podcast, check out the VIP seat hosted by Jessie and Preston. They bring a fair and educated review on various topics in BizAv. Give it a listen. Look at that, 38 likes, 4 comments. Jared, you got a shout out on the podcast because you gave us a shout out on LinkedIn. Jared is the pilot hiring director at Executive Jet Management. So any pilots that are listening should reach out to Jared and apply for a job.
Good company to work for.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks, Jared, for giving us a shout out on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, let's talk about more drama from AOPA. It continues. Preston, you did like a deep dive of the timeline here, so I'll let you share your research.
I did, yeah. So for those that don't really follow general aviation world, now I know that this is primarily a business aviation show, and we typically talk about business aviation things. AOPA is Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. Okay, it is supposed to be all encompassing, but it is typically leaned more GA, turboprop. Owner flown has kind of been its primary resource, but they still do a lot of advocating. Them and Gamma and NBAA will kind of all team up on Capitol Hill and do some advocating and things like that. AOPA appointed a new president. We've talked about this in the past. They appointed a new president. So he was gone pretty much as soon as he was there. He lasted for about a year. So let me walk you through the timeline. September 24th, 2024, Darren Pleasance is announced as the 6th president and CEO of AOPA, effective January 1st, 2025. 8,000 hours, 50 plus aircraft types. He's part owner in a P-51 Mustang. He was a partner at McKinsey, global customer acquisition at Google, led Cisco's acceleration center. So you would think that this guy, huge pilot, owner flown guy, big background in big tech and consulting, like he's kind of the perfect candidate. He lives in Bend, Oregon, and he made it very clear during the hiring process that he was not moving to Frederick, Maryland full time. Now, he had a condo and a hangar there, and he was commuting back and forth. He did get a little bit of flack for making a comment that he said that he flew United instead of his Meridian. To the people giving him grief on that, that's a long trip in a Meridian without a bathroom. So I can't fault him for taking United from Bend, but
In no freaking way.
yeah, no chance. Here was the problem. This is what he was walking into. Is AOPA over about 20 years has been losing members. They're down to 75% off the peak. So they've lost 25% of members over the last 20 years. And of that, 15,000 members in 2024 alone. Like if you think about that, and these are small individual pilots. Yes, the GA pilot pool is shrinking. And yes, there's a lot of grievances to be had about that. If you're shrinking a lot faster, then something is wrong. The staff love this guy. And worth noting is that Mark Baker, the previous president of AOPA, allegedly only spent between 1 and 3 days in the office. Darren was there a lot more. He decided to get on the ground and go start shaking people's hands and meeting people. So he did that through all of 2025. Big events, small events, doesn't matter. Gets to the end of 2025. There's a couple of new board members, so a couple of months ago. Darren Pleasance writes a letter and he publishes it publicly. You can go find this on the internet. We'll link it in the newsletter. And he basically says that he doesn't know many of the board members personally and that he encourages them to be more engaged in AOPA. Now, if you read the letter, which I have, and Jessie, I don't know if you've read this. There's a lot of YouTube
I didn't even know that exists. I didn't know the letter was out there. That's a little bold.
Yeah. So he wrote, well, I think it came out. I think it got released after the fact. Somebody got their hands on it and it's out there. You can read the whole letter. It's not bad. I mean, like if you're sensitive and like you get your feelings hurt easily, yeah, I could see you probably taking it the wrong way because he's totally like, he's subtweeting, right? He's putting a lot of subtext in there.
Mm-hmm.
But he basically says, hey, we want to see you guys be more engaged because obviously we have a problem. We're hemorrhaging members. And mind you, AOPA on an operating basis is losing money every year, but they're making up for it in the dividends from their great investments that they've made. the board is littered with money managers. So they've done a lot of really good investments. They divested of the insurance portfolio, sold that to Assured Partners. They have a finance arm. They have pilot services. They have legal. And then they have all these other investments that are spitting off cash. So the investments are covering the operational loss. They basically said, we want a plan for how you're going to turn this thing around. And he said, look, we're going to turn this thing around by growing our membership. And it was working. I mean, he reduced membership churn like pretty significant.
Well, I mean, that's interesting. I don't know. It's very hard to, I've had the same situations happen. I've been on boards and you have people that, aren't engaged at all, or people that don't really know the industry or whatever it is. It's very hard to wrangle a board, but that's kind of the executive's job too. So I think, to put something out there like that and not be able to handle it internally,
it didn't.
Doesn't look
so
great.
my understanding is that he didn't post it publicly. It just kind of leaked. After all of this was happening. I could be wrong there, but my understanding is basically that,
even so, you see that in person. Like that's at least for me. I don't know.
I don't know if you could get him in person is the problem. Like they hadn't been in Fredericksburg in like a couple of them in a long time. So
yeah.
It probably didn't have enough taste, but basically what happened is the board got pissed and they said, yeah, you're not going to talk to us like that now.
So I think this is a good lesson for boards out there and even for all of these situations. Like this has now become a PR crisis for them. This wasn't just an internal dispute. This is now spilled over into multiple podcasts, multiple stories. Everyone's focused on this. And now all the members are focused on the trustees and how the board gets elected and other things. So they're going to have to do a whole bunch of changes, I think, to reestablish trust with their membership over what could have been, honestly, like a legitimate firing. But if you don't handle it well, this is how things can go.
Yeah. I mean, my understanding is there's more to this story.
I'm sure.
I'm sure that there is. I mean,
sure.
There's no way. And I think the other part of the problem is that Darren is now able as an individual to go on podcasts and just talk. And AOPA is not a person, it's an organization. And so you have to be a little bit more pointed, right? You're not going to have the board of trustees going out on podcasts and talking about the other side of the story, right? So you have one side of the narrative that's getting out there. And then you have the other side who hires a PR firm. People were really mad about how much they paid for the PR firm. Honestly, I don't have an issue. I mean, they allegedly paid like $250,000. Then they did.
Well, they have a
said,
problem.
No, that's not the. Yeah, they said no, that's not the case. It's not how much we paid them. So, anyways, here we go. We keep going. Like it keeps this story is not over yet. He's fired. Then he posts on social media. He's very thankful for everybody. PA on February 12th says that it was the letter that was the catalyst. Dude, these GA pilots in the comment sections on some of these blogs are crazy. Like they are very into this.
Share of comments as well, probably from the same group, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would imagine our 1-star reviews are probably from the same
group,
similar people. So mid-March, 2, possibly 3 long-term trustees are going to retire ahead of the May 12th annual meeting. Former chair Bill Trimble and Larry Boole, 22 years and 33 years and 22 years respectively. Possible current chair Jim Halstein, but that hasn't been confirmed yet, so that's just rumor. Apparently, 2,000 members canceled and 6,000 withdrew proxy votes, which proxy votes allows the board to basically make the decision. Now, it's only like 3% of the membership that have withdrawn, but in an organization that I'm not sure that there's ever been a proxy board vote removed, that's, pretty significant. So then the 20th official news comes out. There's a new board chair, Luke Whippler. Now, Luke Whippler, Cessna 182 amphibious floats, works at US Bank as an EVP. Supposed to be like the next generation. He's kind of going on a little bit of a mop-up trip, and he's going to be at Sun and Fun in person and things like that. Look, the thing is that like, this is messy. I mean, it's really messy, and a lot of these pilots have nothing better to do than to speculate and then talk and then hangar talk and then send each other text messages and send each other stuff. And it's like, if you're AOPA, you got to get out in front of this.
Yeah, that's very complicated and crazy and dramatic, but I guess we wish them luck. We'll see where they end up.
Yeah, no kidding. Anyways, if anything actually relevant comes out of this, then we will share it with the audience. But I think it's important to understand what's going on in the advocacy groups, because I think this is like a good point to talk about. Every advocacy group is going through changes, and it's good. It's healthy to do that. But Anyways.
No, and it's a good segue to the next story, because the Aerospace Repair Station Association, ARSA, which most people have never heard of or get engaged with or anything, they've been working very, very hard on some maintenance regulations that I did a deep dive on this week.
Yeah, so I have even read your notes about this, and I still don't really understand what's going on. So I'm excited for you to share with us what's happening in MRO world.
Yeah, I had to do a deep dive on this because, look, neither of us are mechanics on this show, but essentially what's happened, and this has been going on since like 2019, this trade organization has been lobbying to have some things removed from the regulations, Part 145 regulations, which oversee MROs for those who don't know. But Section 109, Part D is the piece that we have now heard, and this is not confirmed by the association yet. This was posted by someone who was actually at their symposium last week. My understanding is that the FAA is on this path of removing 109D. What is 109D? It's the requirement to have current copies of manuals from the manufacturer at every single repair shop that's involved in repairing something, even down to things like oxygen cylinders. There's also some situations in which people have an older version of a part or component, and the FAA is requiring them to have the newest version that doesn't even have the schematics for the old version of that part. So it's been kind of like this huge problem in maintenance for a long time, and a place where the OEMs are charging, and this is like a small business issue, small businesses that are bringing in $2 million in revenue, they can't really afford to spend $700,000 on OEM manuals. So that's why ARSA has been kind of pushing for this to get rid of it. And also, it hasn't really improved safety because there are things in the new manuals that aren't necessarily relevant to keeping it safe. All in all, to say, when Ken Rickey came on and was saying, hey, we need more PMA parts and we need to be able to use third parties and smaller business and more competition, this is all going to help that.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Okay, so here's a question, and I couldn't really figure this out. So if I am working on Gulfstream aircraft, do I have to have every part, like every manual for every Gulfstream aircraft, like G4SP, G4, like G3, like the whole, or is it only aircraft that I'm working on? Like how does that work?
So it's only aircraft you're working on, but there's a lot of contractual things that pop up. Like if you're going to be a Gulfstream service center, for example, you may be required to own every single manual that they publish, not just the ones that you're working on. And this is really down to the OEM, to do that. And all this comes back to, I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago, there was a debate with farmers and John Deere tractors. They were losing the ability to actually repair their own equipment. And that's kind of what's happened in aviation, is that the OEM sells you an airplane, but then they also say, you also have to buy all this technical publication and support from us to repair said airplane and have our approvals for every single part that goes into that airplane. So there's this debate between MROs and OEMs deciding, okay, this isn't really safety stuff. This is all contractual. This is like the OEM is forcing us to do some of these things. So the FAA requires access to maintenance data through what's called the Instructions for Continued Airworthiness. And you remember when Ken Rickey was on the show, he was talking about how OEMs haven't been providing that data to the shops to actually do the repairs. There's now a working group that's trying to undo all of this. So the FAA bill in 2024 that reauthorized them included a provision saying there has to be a rulemaking committee on this. So what I'm saying is that the rulemaking committee is active and they're working. And I think 109D is just the beginning, but there may be more repealing of this kind of held information on the OEM side and allowing more third-party suppliers and manufacturers and makers to start producing more non-OEM parts that are just as safe as the OEM part, in a nutshell.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. It's a regulatory capture thing where the OEMs are the only ones who can provide this, so therefore they can charge whatever they want to. I mean, the problem is the FAA actually came out, from what I read, that the FAA came out and said, hey, we're not going to regulate prices. We're going to let this be a market thing. The problem is that's monopolistic behavior. And trust busting is kind of it's like a core foundational piece of American democracy. And so allowing for this to go on for a long time seems kind of crazy. So good for the association. I mean, look, associations can do some really good stuff. And this is net very positive for the entire industry. It's going to this is going to have a lot of trickle down effects, which is good. should hopefully lower maintenance costs. Let's hope.
Hopefully so. More choices, more options, more pressure on OEMs, because frankly, the industry is just too fragmented to do it themselves. We don't have the power that the major airlines do over, OEMs and their decision making. And the FAA is never going to do anything. I had the same debate with DERs. There's an issue with DERs and DARs and everybody else charging basically whatever they want to, whenever they want to. And the FAA has explicitly said, we don't control pricing. All we do is provide the training. So it leaves this hole where it's like, okay, well, who's going to be responsible for this? And the FAA is not going to do it.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. Well, speaking of regulation, we have another regulation change. The See and Avoid has officially made some significant progress. So FAA has canceled mixed traffic, which is exciting. And I know this is a topic Jessie is very passionate about because it's both safety and helicopter related.
Yeah. And it's like two sides of the coin. I think, unfortunately, FAA and everybody who's, seen regulations come around, there is a knee-jerk reaction. We had the accident at DCA, obviously horrible crash, obviously changes needed. But what this has resulted in is the FAA just saying, okay, you know what? We're not going to allow helicopters to just go willy-nilly and see and avoid traffic anymore. They have to be under active control like everybody else, which, yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it. But also someone who's flown in helicopters don't fly in the same way as airplanes do. So there's going to be a ramp up period where, air traffic controllers have to treat them like airplanes, but they're not airplanes. They can just hover and stop where they are if you don't want them to run into something. So it's going to change how aircraft operate at airspace. I mean, I'm worried about EMS helicopters being able to get out quickly, if they have to wait now. But I guess it's all for safety. I mean, ultimately, I think controllers have not really taken helicopters seriously. I myself was in DCA's tower at some point many, many, many years ago, and someone asked about helicopter traffic and they're like, oh, we just ignore those. And at the moment, in the pit of my stomach, I was like, that doesn't feel right. So obviously something needed to change, but maybe this is too far, especially for certain fields. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you have to make some sort of progress. I think it also, the reality is that the ATC system is just really stressed. I mean, we saw another example of that this week. I don't know if you've listened to the recording. I mean, it is hard. It's hard. Everything about it is just incredibly heartbreaking. My understanding is that you had one controller handling multiple different responsibilities in the tower. And we're not talking at 2 a.m, right? We're talking about, 11:30-ish at night, 11:20, something like that, and cleared a fire truck to cross the runway. And it was not the time to clear, yelled stop, didn't stop. And then, unfortunately had loss of life, a lot of injuries, and just an absolutely tragic accident at LaGuardia.
Yeah. From the reports that we're hearing now, the 2 fatalities were the crew members. Others are hospitalized, but hopefully at this point on their way to recovery. But yeah, it's just things happen so fast, especially in a location like LaGuardia, Atlanta, all these airports where there is just an unbelievable amount of traffic. There's almost no room for error. And obviously, we have to wait for the report to come out, but I think it's kind of clear just based on recordings that everyone can access that, he made a mistake. And it's such a shame that they weren't able to stop it.
Yeah, no, our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of those crew members and of everybody involved, and to the controller. I mean, that's got to be, I don't know how we got to get that guy some help for sure.
Yeah. No, it's going to be tough. And again, too, I know, Sean Doppie's already come out and said, we need more funding and we need it now. We already passed a bunch of funding for ATC, last year. But honestly, the task is just so monumental because there's so many just these little systems that just haven't been upgraded in so long. It's, people always like to blame the human that's involved, whether it's the pilot or the controller, whoever it is that was involved in the situation. But a lot of times it's the systems that we've put around them. And we clearly have not done a good enough job with runway incursions because we continue to see them over and over and over again in our safety reports. And these tragedies happen. Ultimately, if the systems aren't there to keep it from happening, it's going to happen inevitably. Humans make mistakes.
Yeah. No.
All right. Last story of the week, not business aviation, but it's space. And it's kind of interesting and cool. And I just had to bring it up because it's fascinating to me. But astronomers are freaking out because Elon Musk just got approved to put his next generation satellites in the air, which is another 15,000 of those things orbiting our beautiful world.
Yeah. They're mad because at some point you're not going to be able to see past the satellites. Right. It's like, oh, I'm trying to look at space here and your satellite keeps running in front of my telescope. So I get it. It's frustrating. I also am like, the other problem is that we leave. I learned this recently and I was like, that's crazy. You just leave satellites up there. Like you don't pull them back down. So it's like, when are we going to get full? I mean, I guess my finite brain, my tiny brain cannot imagine how large and vast space is, but I can imagine a world in which like we run out of space for satellites.
So, some of the things they were talking about in this article, I didn't even really think about, but it's like these new generation things that Elon wants to put up there have mirrors on them and they reflect a lot of sunlight and a lot of moonlight. And they think that the sky is going to be brightened like 2 to 3 times higher in brightness than it used to be, which meant all the equipment that they spent billions of dollars on can no longer see into the sky because of the, brightness of the sky. I'm like, I don't know, between that and like, how do we get them out of space? Like they're developing these bots that can like throw them like into the atmosphere to burn. Like, what a crazy world we're going to have to deal with in like, 10 years here.
Yeah, we're going to have data centers in space. It's just going to be crazy. I love space. Space is cool, but also like, I don't know. Things are great how they are now. I like to look at stars, so just don't make it too bright.
It's like though, balancing the public good, right? Okay, we've brightened the sky way more than we should have, but at the same time, now, protesters in Iran can post things on the internet of what's going on, like the global connection, for safety and security. There's so many aspects to this, and I don't know who's right. We're just going to have to like figure it out piece by piece. But at some point, astronomers are probably not going to be able to really look from the ground into the sky anymore. We're going to need satellites outside of the satellite.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Well, this has been another awesome episode of the VIP seat. I am here in Cleveland, Ohio at Schedulers and Dispatchers, where it is freezing cold. But so if you're around the show, let me know. I would love to meet up with the listeners. The best way you can help us grow this show and support it is by sharing. You can do things like Jared Weiss, and you can post the show on LinkedIn for all of your friends and family to go listen. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter at thevipseat.com. Thanks to AB Jets for sponsoring this week's episode of the VIP Seat, and we will see you all next week.